Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Speak On It Show. I am your host, R.W. Coolings, episode 28. Last show of the year, y'all. Last show of 2020. Let's go. Give me them horns. Good morning, Maurice Wigfall. Happy holidays, bro. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. Good morning, Lady Michelle. Good morning. Happy holidays. Appreciate the support. Good morning, Ethan Johnson. Good morning, Ethan Johnson. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? As I said, it's the episode 28. We're at the end of 2020. We got what, Friday? Friday's the end of the year. Be the first of the new year, 2021. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. Today's show, we're gonna get into this, but today's show, we're gonna be doing a 2020 review. 2020 review, and I want everybody to be able to chime in when you want to chime in. Also, I posted a link on Facebook where you can come in virtually, and we can put you on the screen as well. So anybody who wants to do that, but let's get these formalities out the way as we go. I'm excited, y'all. This is the last show. Well, let's get in this. Follow me, rwcoolings.com. That is the website. You can go there, get all the information you need. Follow me on Facebook, YouTube. All the places you can follow me are there. Right now, we're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you've got a comment you want to make, go ahead and come on in. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Say what you mean what you say. That's where we're at today. That's where we're at. Good morning, Melvin Jackson. Good morning, Melvin Jackson. Appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate the support. Call in number 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. Call in. Let your voice be heard. Or come in virtually, come in as you always do. You know, most of y'all always do comments and everything like that. And we're going to get into this 2020 review. And before we get into this, I hope everybody had a good Christmas yesterday. If you weren't able to celebrate it with family, or if you were able to celebrate it with family, I hope you had a good time. Hope you were safe. Hope you were safe as well. With the social distancing and everything that's going on. But we're going to get into some things going on with this 2020 review. But one thing I'm going to get into first is the Nashville explosion. The explosion in Nashville yesterday. Let's touch on that a little bit. It was on Christmas morning. There was an RV left unattended. And the reports say, and this is just kind of jumps out at me kind of funny. Good morning, Brother Avery Hoodie. Brother Brian Avery Hoodie. Good morning, bro. Good morning, April Wheaton, my sister. Good morning. Good morning. Happy holidays to all of you out there tuning in this morning. But they said that, this RV was unattended, left unattended, and let me go ahead and get my banners up here, right? We're going to do this 2020 review. But they said that this RV was left unattended and that it is an intentional act. An intentional act. Now, I ain't the brightest light bulb in the socket, as I always tell y'all, but I do flicker every once in a while. I do flicker. And I'm wondering, okay, anytime there's a bombing, anytime there's a shooting, anytime something like this goes on, in my eyes, they're all intentional. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all intentional. So for them to just come out and say it was an intentional act, it kind of throws me off, because I'm like, okay, when is someone setting off a bomb to cause damage, to cause terror, unintentional? Y'all help me with this one, because I when I first heard it yesterday, I was a little confused, not confused, confused. I don't know why, but when I first heard it, but supposedly at the time it injured 3 people. And then the RV that was parked there, it was sending out a message that there was a bomb and it would detonate in 15 minutes. Now, for those 3 that got hurt, injured, I think they were responders trying to get people out of there. But you know, if I'd have heard this bomb, this recorded, I'd have been out of there a long time ago. But that's just me. Some people, you know, they want to go investigate whoever they are. But they're saying that there was some human tissue and things like that at the scene. So they're trying to find out if there was any casualties, or if the human tissue came from the person who actually intentionally set this bomb. I don't mean to laugh about it. I mean, people could have been hurt, could have been anywhere in the United States of America. But they're also saying that it was in front of one of the buildings that houses AT&T, and that services were affected. It disrupted service for 911 services. Flights were halted because of communication issues, and then that wireless communications were affected through many of the states and everything in that area. Then I seen something, and this is where we're at in the United States of America. I seen something, that conspiracy theory, that said that AT&T, the reason this person or whoever blew up this building that contained AT&T or whatever, is because AT&T is somehow connected with the votes that were brought in from Germany into the polls to help Joe Biden win. Now, I don't read up on those conspiracy theories. I don't get into all that, but I happen to see it. So I had to bring it up, because, you know, first we hear it's an intentional act. Then we hear, you know, there's these conspiracy theories behind it. Let the people do the investigation that they need to do, and then we will go from there. But all these things that we hear, all the things that they talk about, it is what it is. So let's get into this. Anybody's got something we want to rehash on 2020? If you have something you want to talk about for 2020, or if you have some feelings about how you feel about 2020, don't hesitate to call in, either come in virtually or send me a message, put a comment up, and then we'll discuss it from there. But basically, this is just going to be a free for all today. I'm just going to touch on some certain things that are going on in 2020, some of the major things, and it's going to rehash a lot of things we've talked about throughout this year. Now, COVID-19, that's been the headline news. That's been the headline news over and over and over again throughout this 2020. COVID-19 and the deaths worldwide right now. 79.9 million cases worldwide of COVID-19, 1.7 million deaths. Now, this COVID-19 hit the United States soil probably around, I think they started saying we had some cases back in February. But right now in the US, we have 19.2 million cases, 338,263 deaths. On Christmas Day, yesterday alone, they had 91,922 new cases of COVID-19 and 1,129 deaths. Christmas Day, y'all. Christmas Day. Now they're saying there's a new strain in England and France and Japan. I started reading a little bit up on it, where they're wondering if it's going to affect the vaccine that's out there now or anything like that. They're really still looking at it because they don't know the extent of this new strain or how different this new strain is. But let's get into COVID-19 and how 2020 has been affected by this. I mean, 2020 has really come to a standstill as far as lives are concerned because of COVID-19. We found out that there are disparities in healthcare. We found out that there was questions about who gets care, who doesn't get care, how many people were dying on the table, who got ventilators, who didn't get ventilators, it was pecking order in 2020 about who was going to get what when this first started. And today it's still the same way. And I say that because we had a vaccine that is now in rotation. And with this vaccine in rotation, you still have people that are going to the front of the line that shouldn't be at the front of the line. Now, we all heard that when this vaccine came, when they started giving the vaccines, it's supposed to go to first responders, healthcare workers. Those are supposed to be the main people. But we see these senators and congressmen and naysayers and Rudy Giuliani's and all these different people in line to get these vaccines. But Rudy Giuliani got the same thing President Trump got as far as his medications, and we're still trying to figure out how that works. But you sit here and you think about this in 2020, and it showed all these disparities in our healthcare system. And there's one thing that I want to bring up about COVID-19. Now, this will shine some light on it, and I think we talked about this before. But there's a guy named Michael Floor in Seattle, Washington. He was in the hospital for March and April from COVID-19. More than a month of that was in intensive care. He got a 181-page bill that cost $1.1 million for the care that he received for those 2 months. The breakdown goes like, oh, well, $1,122,501.04. Now, I don't know where that 4 cents came from. I don't know where, I don't know if that's from tax or whatever, but 4 cents. $1,122,501.04. 4 cents. The breakdown goes like this: $408,912 for 42 days in the ICU. That breaks down to $9,736 a day. $9,736 a day to be in the ICU. $82,215 for 29 days on a ventilator. That breaks down to $2,835 a day. $491,127 additional costs that were itemized. The average itemized cost in this $491,000 was $50 a day. There were 3,000 itemized charges on this bill. A 181-page bill that cost $1.1 million for his care while he was trying to get past COVID. Now, we did find out Medicare will cover most of the charges, most of the medical costs that he had. And he got the bill, and it came down to about $6,000 out of pocket. And he probably won't have to pay that because of, the things that Congress have in place and everything like that. So they said at the end of it, he may be coming out of pocket about $3,000 total for all that care out of $1.1 million bill. Currently, now here it is. Currently, one person is dying from COVID-19 every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, someone is dying from COVID-19. Now, when we talk about COVID-19, and I just talked about the disparities in healthcare and different things like that. When we talk about, touching on COVID-19, how it's affected us, there's a lot of people that have passed away this year. I'll bring up John Lewis for one, and many, many others that we've identified and I've talked about on this show. But when we talk about the 338,000 American citizens that have died from this COVID-19, that we don't know probably even a quarter, probably even 4 or 5 names, unless they're close to you, that have died from this coronavirus. And then we see the vaccine is out now, and these things are, we're getting in circulation, and people are trying to get back to a sense of normalcy as far as how we live and what we do and how we function, getting businesses open. But these 338,000 people who lost their lives to COVID-19, what about them? Are they just casualties of war per se? Are they just people who just, died, sacrificial lambs because we didn't know what was going on? Because who's responsible? We keep hearing politicians say, well, the virus came from China, but it came from China, but you knew it was here when it was here. You called it a hoax. You said it wasn't going to affect people. It would go away once it got warm, and all these different variations that were put into play, which minimizes, to me, the death of these 338,000 people who passed away from COVID-19 because we, and when I say we as America, did not do what we needed to do to protect these 338,000 people, let alone the 19.2 million that have been affected by this disease, this pandemic. The United States of America, we call ourselves this great country, but we can't even protect and do our due diligence to make sure that our people are safe. in a time when we know what's going on, when a time that we know that there's going to be a pandemic, and there's certain people in positions of power that could give a damn about who, what, when, or where happens to us at a certain level. This is a part of what we found out in 2020. You know, I'll go back to this. At the beginning of 2020, I did a post, and I talk about it often. And I said 2020 was going to be the year of vision, the year of perfect vision, 2020 vision. And I think 2020 has opened our eyes to the points of understanding and knowing that a lot of things that go on around us that we may ignore, these underlying things that go on a consistent basis in the United States of America, where we're not taking care of our citizens like we say we would. We're not, our systems are broken, and we're not doing the things we need to do. 2020 opened our eyes to these things, and it took a pandemic to really open our eyes to how disproportionate things are to certain people because of your status. Not because of who you are, because of your status, of where you sit, how much money you make, all these different things has been exposed in 2020. The question is, what are we going to do going forward? How are we going to remedy this going forward? And I'll transition into that, because here's the next one. We talk about the stock market. The stock market was one of the biggest things they talked about in going into 2020. How great the stock market was, and how everybody was living well, and money was just bountiful for certain people who invest in the stock market. 401ks were looking good for those who invest at their jobs and different things like that. And then the the COVID-19 kicked in, and the stock market started falling. And then people were more concerned about the money they were losing rather than the lives being lost. And then when you talk about, unemployment benefits, that end today, unemployment benefits in today, tonight. And we have a president that's on the golf course down there that could care less about those in need, rather than doing his job as what he's supposed to do as a lame duck president, as they say. You have two bills that need to be signed that's going to keep the economy going. The government could be shut down as of Monday. Unemployment benefits, moratorium on evictions, things I've talked about consistently. All these things are coming to fruition today, tomorrow, and Monday. And we have a president sitting in office who would rather go to his Mar-a-Lago resort and play golf rather than look out for the welfare of the citizens. Why is that? And people will put it on the fact that he lost the election. It's deeper than just the election. It's deeper than just the election, because I will go out on a limb and say, even though he came out the other day and said that people should get $2,000 rather than the $600, that's not why he's not signing this bill that's on his desk. And, all the pork that's in there, that's always in all these bills that nobody seems to object to unless it's something that they think they can get from it. But we're at a point in 2020 where we have a president who was elected in office, who is now being unelected and taken out of office, who is sitting there allowing people to die, allowing people to lose money, allowing people to go bankrupt, to go poor, because he chooses not to sign a lifeline where $600 is not going to do enough, but a lifeline to get these people through. And then those who voted for him wonder why the 80 or however many people voted for Joe Biden voted for him. And the disconnect we have with who voted for Trump, who voted for Biden. At the end of the day, it's not about either one of them. It's about the welfare and the well-being of every United States citizen on this soil. And if we can't get a president in there and a Senate and a Congress to do what is the will of the people, is what they were voted in for, then we have a problem. And I will say, over this next 4 years, or the next 2 years, because we got elections coming up in 2 years for some people in the Senate and the Congress, but over these next 2 years, we need to evaluate what these people are doing. You need to pay attention. 2020 has opened our eyes to the fact that everybody that says they're for you ain't for you. And everybody that says they're going to do good for you is not going to do good for you. It's about their best interests. And we as citizens who have a stake in this need to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. Georgia, y'all got an election coming up January 6th. Don't sleep on it. Do not sleep on it. And I seen and I know I'm jumping around, but I seen a article the other day that talked about this election and the black vote, and how the black vote was in numbers per se the largest, even outside of when Obama ran. If we can do that at a time when we want someone specifically out of office, then we need to do it every time an election comes around. Because here's what you got to remember. No matter how many obstacles were put out there, no matter how many ways they gave you the opportunity to vote, whether it was mail in person, all these different things, your vote matters. And we need to do our due diligence and get out there and make sure our voices are heard. We can't sit on the sidelines and say, well, what's the lesser of two evils or anything like that. Do your research. You'll find out what the lesser of two evils are. Do your research. You'll find out who's for you and who's against you. We all may not agree in the black community about what goes on in our community, but we still need to get out there and let our voices be heard. I'll get into this a little later on, but when you talk about the Voting Rights Act, as I say, I'm jumping around. We talk about elections and voter rights, voter suppression, been going on for years. But in 2020, with this COVID, and they came and they made different ways for people to be able to vote by mail-in ballots and things like that. And it was a big issue because they knew that a majority of people of color would vote by mail-in ballots rather than going to the polls because of the fear of the COVID-19 that was going on, because we were disproportionately being affected as people of color and people with underlying conditions. So when they came out with these things about mail-in voting, people were in an uproar because they knew that if you give people an option other than having to stand in line and just being able to mail it in or being able to drop it off, there would be a larger outcome. And they pushed against it, but we persevered. I mean, you had polls. They closed polls on a consistent basis in our neighborhoods. They close polls in our neighborhoods. They go from 25 down to 2 and expect us to go and stand in line for hours and hours, thinking that it's going to deter us from doing our voting. These are things that have been exposed in 2020. It's not the fact that we haven't seen this before, but it's been highlighted in 2020, especially with this pandemic. Voters have been taken off rolls, something that has gone on for years and years and years. But we paid attention this time. Questions about voter legitimacy, signatures. These are all things that harbor, and if you pay attention, they harbor around the African-American community. Detroit, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, to be specific. Large African-American populations within these cities is where the voter fraud was spearheaded and pinpointed to. Why? Because we came out in numbers. December 2019, the House passed the Voting Rights Advancement Act 228-287. This was December of 2019. Today, December 26th of 2020, that Voters' Rights Act, which was renamed in July of 2020 after Congressman John Lewis died, to the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act of 2020, but it was voted on back in 2019, December. It has still not come to a vote in the Senate. Why? Why do these things happen? Why do we allow these things happen? Why do we put people in office that we know are not good for us or good for the people and what the people want? We can put as much blame as we want on Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader. We can put as much blame on him as we want because he's the one that takes it to the floor or not. But even when it gets to the floor, you still need to hold those other senators accountable who choose not to do the will of the people. Case in point, as I say, I'm jumping around. February, President Trump was impeached. Why? Abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. We all seen it. We all watched it. We all heard what was going on. He was looking for dirt on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden to be able to show that they were, corrupt in order to win the election coming up. February 5th, he put this out there. He was impeached February 5th, excuse me. The House impeached him. The Senate acquitted him. Now, when you talk about the Senate in this aspect, they acquitted him, never called one witness, never listened to any testimony, never did anything that you would do in a normal trial to find out if the facts justify the impeachment. So when you talk about the Senate, you talk about the Congress, it's not the fact of who's in charge of the people up there, like you got Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, it's not, and Mitch McConnell. It's not the head, it's the legs. It's all the others that jump in and do their thing. You see, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, all these different people who are Trump supporters who sit up there and they're not doing the will of the people. They're doing the will of the person, the one, not the many. And then we look at these things and we wonder why. How does this happen? Because we don't pay attention to what they've done in their past and what they've stood on. We have justice reform, prison reform, defund the police. All these things have been, magnified and spoken through a bullhorn in 2020. But what's going to change? How are we going to change? What are we going to change? What are we going to do to make the difference in these systems? Because you have to remember, all these systems are regulated and put in the form by the Senate and the Congress. When we talk about the justice system, I've talked about it many times, African Americans serving time unjustly. And then you see pardons being thrown out, handed out like Christmas presents to people who have found guilty, people who have pleaded guilty, and their crimes that they've committed never come to the forefront. But the ones who have been convicted and put into jail for things that they haven't done, that they never testified that they did anything wrong, served 44 years as the man I talked about last week, 44 years or 28 years or 2 days, however much time they serve. And then you see these pardons flying out here for people who are friends, cohorts, or have information that could, take the president down. And you see them get pardoned, not because they didn't do it, but because of who they're associated with. So when we talk about justice reform, prison reform, defund the police, yes, they're slogans, but there also needs to be action. There needs to be action when we talk about these things. We can't continue to go par for the course and say, well, it didn't happen to me, so I'm okay. Anyone who is unjustly jailed means all of us are unjustly being served. It's just the way the system is set up. It needs to be relooked at. And you have to always remember, when these systems were put into place, most of these systems, I will say, were put into place, African Americans were looked at as 3/5 of a man when it came to voting. Your vote only counted as 3/5, not a full vote. But when these systems are here and they're still using the same systems, but they don't want to go back and put amendments in and change this and change that, it makes you wonder where and what does the will of the people stand for? How far have we come and how much further do we have to go? These are the things that we look at, we talk about, and I bring to your attention because if we don't pay attention to these things, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, if we don't dig our heels in and make change for us, the masses, who's going to do it? Black Lives Matter, big thing. You have Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. The slogan Black Lives Matter, the organization, just wanted to put a spotlight on the fact of how Black lives seem to not matter when it comes to police killings, even within our own communities. This is an organization that's working within Chicago and places that you see the high proportionate deaths between Black on Black crime, which is a a phrase I don't like to use, because if you say Black on Black crime, you need to say white on white crime. But you talk about Black Lives Matter like it's a terrorist organization, like they've done. All we've done as Black Lives Matter movement is protest against the unjust in the system. But then you have people that say blue lives matter. Well, yeah, no one ever said blue lives didn't matter. And everyone respects police, used to and still do, some. Blue lives have always mattered, especially in the judicial system, because when's the last time that you've seen a large amount of police officers get sentenced for something that they've done wrong while they're wearing a uniform? Proportionately, Black lives being killed, Black Americans being killed at the hands of police, there's a very small percentage of those that face trial. Very small percentage. So when you say blue lives matter, yes, we care when blue lives matter, when, police officers get killed on duty. Yes, we care. But when is somebody going to bring up and say military lives matter? Soldiers' lives matter. Marines' lives matter. Airmen's lives matter. Seamen's lives matter. All that. You don't hear this big push about that when we're at war. We talk about the military and how they put the ultimate sacrifice and different things like that. But when you talk about when Black lives matter, we tend to eliminate the fact that these are the same people that have served the military, have served this country proudly. But those that haven't served have the nerve to call their lives less than. We have fought in wars since this country was established. And we're still fighting wars on this soil. Then you had the white supremacy organizations. Many, many, many. They have reared their heads more publicly and more vocal now. Why? Why? Is it that they feel comfortable because of who's in office? Do they feel comfortable that the system is going to support them in what they're doing? That it's going to overlook whatever they're trying to do? You had organizations, white supremacist organizations, storming capitals. If you look up the definition, that's treason, tyranny, terrorists. But they hesitate to call them terrorists when these things happen. Brown hoodie, blue lives are protected, Black lives aren't. Plain and simple. It's the most simplistic way you can put it. Because through history, it has been shown that Black lives don't matter. Let me transition for a minute. When you go back and you think about us as African Americans, Black folks, and power to the people. I'm Black and I'm proud. All the things we do in our movements as time is going on, where we wore the African medallions because, we're African Americans, our descendants come from Africa, and how we're looked at because we want to embrace our heritage of what we know, of how we feel about our heritage, getting to know who we are. It's a movement. These are things that we do to embrace who we are and where we've come from. But there's always roadblocks that come into play from the other side to say, you're not African. You're here. Claim of being American. Stand on being an American and stop claiming Africa. Well, at the end of the day, we try to claim who we know we are. But there's always this roadblock about we're not this. But when you hear someone say I'm Irish American or Italian American or any of those type things or Asian American, everyone's fine with that. But when we take the time to try to be in touch and embrace our heritage, things come up. And I'm going to get into something real quick. Let me do this quote right here. Ooh, Ethan Johnson, very good show today. Been watching the Persian Gulf over the last week. Major buildup of assets on the sea, under the sea, and in the air. Domestically, the distractions, confusion, and chaos is tactical. In my opinion, he's attempting a form of a coup. His end goal is a third political party, power and control. Pay attention during the next 10 to 12 days. The Georgia Senate races are major to the democracy of America. We could be in the midst of a war with no support in America for the American people. Amen. And I've seen some things on this too. And I try not to get alarmed, but it's fact. We have until 20 January with this president, lame duck president, as I mentioned, who is basically just saying, I'm done. He's done taking care of the American citizens, but he's not done causing the chaos that he can because he's leaving office. This is something that we all need to be cognizant of. You also need to be aware With this comes those radical white supremacists. I'm gonna call them radical white supremacists who are out here, who will not have your best intentions at hand just because of who you are and what you look like. So we need to be careful over these next 20 days. And it shouldn't just be the next, till January 20th. It should be every day. We need to be protective of ourselves and our communities, because there's a lot going on in the undercurrent, as I speak of, and as Ethan Johnson just eloquently put, that's going to cause us to have to look at things a lot differently. How we handle things, how we go about things, all that. Be aware, be aware, be aware. So back to what I was talking about. I know there's a transition. September 4th, he eliminated diversity training in federal workplaces. Called it divisive, anti-American propaganda. So I'm curious on this, and anybody can chime in. But when you have, when you have a program that is about diversity in the workplace, showing people that there's diverse people, there's diverse mindsets, there's diverse thinking in the workplace, how to treat people, what should be said, what shouldn't be said, all these things to make sure that the accountability is of the masses rather than the few of how they may feel, making sure that people are protected in the workplace, what is being taught in the workplace, how we can all be on the same equal playing field. They had the affirmative action back in the day, different things like that. But this president on September 4th eliminated diversity training in the federal workplace. Why? For what reason? Because he could? Or is this akin to what I talked about a minute ago, the white supremacist movement? If you eliminate the processes and the things that were put in place to put everyone on an equal playing field, per se, these are the things that they try to eliminate. As I talked about the Voting Rights Act, same thing. Need love. Stay cognizant of everything. There are no coincidences. He's got a big trick up his sleeve. Yeah. And we need to be aware, and people need to stay aware, because here's the thing. If he was not held accountable for impeachment by the Senate, how do we think, and why would we think that he would be held accountable for anything he's going to do up until January 20th? I'll caveat with this. We've all done things in our lives where we're not proud of, where we were worried about what the consequences may be. And it may not be to the point of, going to jail or anything like that. Just knowing that you've done something wrong to someone. At this point, this president and, his supporters that are in office, they have committed crimes. They have been pardoned. They know what they've done. We know what they've done. And we know what they'll continue doing even after they come out of this. The main thing is the supporters of these people, the everyday average citizen that supports them, are the ones you need to be cognizant of, because they're the ones that are going to take out the will of whatever this man wants to do and his minions want to do. It's like a cult, per se. It's one of those things where you look at it and you wonder, how can someone support someone like that? But then you have to think a little deeper and say, the reason they support someone like that is because they think like that. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about having the power or having the say in the downfall and the minimization of citizens that aren't fulfilling the status quo of what they want. "2020, y'all. It's been one of them. It's been one of them years. It's been one of them years. And as we talk about this, as we come into the end of the year on Friday, and you reflect back and you look at things and you wonder about things, and you see and you wonder, how are we going to go forward? What are we going to do to go forward? I've had a couple guests this year, and two of them, main focus on mental health. Mental health is a big issue in our community and in the world, but it's an unspoken problem. Going into 2021, as we leave in 2020, all the things that have gone on in 2020, everything that I've talked about from the pandemic, justice reform, all these different things are triggers for mental health. You may not think it is, but it is. There's certain things that have affected you during 2020 that you probably never even thought about. And it happens every year. There's things that affect us every year that we carry into the next year. Excuse me. Even though we say we have these resolutions that we come up with that I'm not taking into the next year what I dealt with the last year, but sometimes we don't unpack the baggage that we have. We don't unpack all the baggage. We unpack certain parts of the baggage, but not the full amount that's in there that we call baggage. And when I say baggage, I'm talking about the things that we've been through, the things that happened to us, all the things that you can think of that have kind of thrown you off track in that year. Your mental health is very important. You need to start paying attention to your mental health like you do your physical health. If you go to the gym, you work out to stay in shape, you're working on how you look, but it's all about your internal organs, your heart, your heart rate, your lungs, and all the different things, how your body feels and how it looks. But you need to put just as much concentration on your mental health going into 2021. Because as much as you may not think that this year has affected you, one way or another, it has affected you deeper than you can think of at this time. You may not have had anyone close to you that has passed away. You may not have had anyone close to you that was affected with COVID-19. But just the amount of numbers, the change in lifestyle, the restrictions that we've had to deal with, coming out of our comfort zone as far as how we operate through life on a daily basis, all these things add up to baggage that you carry with you day after day after day. Going into 2021, you need to shed some of that. You need to leave it in 2020. And I'm not saying like you normally do, every year talking about I'm going to change this and I'm going to change that. When I say leave it, I mean leave it. Leave it this year. Let's do this mind, body, and soul segment real quick. Mind, body, and soul. We're speaking about baggage. Mind, body, and soul. The past cannot be changed, forgotten, edited, or erased. It can only be accepted. The past cannot be changed, forgotten, edited, or erased. It can only be accepted. Now, a lot of people hang on that as far as the being accepted. But here's the thing you have to remember. You can't go back and change anything. You can't edit it. You can't say, give me a do-over. You can't do any of those things with your life or with this last year. You can't. You have to accept it. But here's the thing about accepting it for what it is. You have to look at it, evaluate it, understand and know how it has affected you, no matter what it is. We talk about the pandemic but let's go with the multitude of things that could have happened to you in this year. Accept them. Accept them as they're a part of your life. Accept them that it has dictated and changed parts of your life. But that doesn't mean you have to carry it into the next year. Accepting it means that it happened. You did your best while you were going through it. And that it's not going to make you bitter. It's going to make you better. The next year for me is going to be, it's going to be a year of overcoming. Overcoming all these things that have happened, overcoming all the things, and you don't even have to concentrate on just 2020. You can go all the way back. Because if 2020 taught us anything, no matter what you've done in your past, no matter what accomplishments you've accomplished, no matter what bad you may have done, 2020 has shown you that anything and everything that you may have accomplished, anything you may have done wrong can be erased from the memory banks overnight by something that seems even worse. We need to buckle down. We need to evaluate. When I say evaluate, I'm not just talking about, oh, look at it and say, oh, yeah, I can get over that. I got over that. Your mental health. Your mental health. If you put your mental health first when you start thinking about these things and really drill down into how it's affected you, not on the surface, but deep down in your soul. Going into 2021, it's going to give you a new focus and a new purpose on how you're going to be able to go forward without holding on to the things that have happened to you in the past. Not only from this year, but many years past. It's when I talk about that luggage. You know, I used to tell people this phrase of when you go on a trip, you pack a bag before you go. You put everything in that bag that you think you're going to need on that trip because you're going to be gone for a certain amount of time. You need everything that you think you're going to need that's going to supply you while you're gone. You go on your trip, you come back. The first thing you do when you come back is unpack. You take out all the clothes. You take out all the shoes. You take out everything that you packed in the bag for that journey. And you put it back in your closet. Put the shoes back where they belong. You put everything back where it was before you left. Because now you've come back from that trip that you went on. And you're coming back to the normal state of where you were before you packed that bag for your vacation. If you can put those things back where they were, as far as coming from a vacation, then you can go back to the everyday thinking and understanding that everything that has gone on this side, I have the memories, but I don't have to continue carrying it with me every day. That's why they call it a baggage. And it's not baggage unless something's in and you're carrying something in the baggage. Just a little food for thought. Unpack those bags. Unpack your luggage. Unpack your bags. Unpack anything that has been hindering you in this year before you take it into 2021. Now we're going to transition to 2021. 2021. You know, I was on a Zoom call yesterday with my family and got kind of emotional about the things that have gone on through 2021. I'm not going to get in detail, but we've had a lot of heartache, a lot of trials and tribulations, different things that have gone on within our family, you know, individually as well as collectively. And my mother said something yesterday to one of my nieces about, you know, healing and grieving and taking it one day at a time. And it took me back to when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid and you know, the junior choir, the children's choir, excuse me. And the first time I ever had to sing a solo, the song was One Day at a Time. And when my mother was talking about this yesterday, it came back to me. I remember that song word for word. And at the time when I was singing it as a child, I never really understood what those words meant. But reflecting on it yesterday brings me in how I'm going to go into 2021. I'm going in one day at a time. Leslie Ambush, amen. Happy holidays, cuz. Appreciate your support. One day at a time. I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to give you a little part on how it starts. It says, I'm only human. I'm just a man. Jesus, you know, when you're looking below, is worse now than then. Show me the stairway that I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. 2021. Well, let's go back to 2020 for a minute. Because in 2020, with everything that was going on, we had no choice but to take it one day at a time. I mean, we were technically in lockdown. We had to wear masks. We're still wearing masks. There were certain things that we didn't know what was going to happen from one day to the next. And it made us, as I've mentioned many times before, especially me, it made me sit down. It made us sit down and look at things from a different perspective, not from the hustle and bustle of running and what we need to do and where we need to go and all those type of things, but it made us concentrate on the necessities of what we need in order to survive during the pandemic. And if anything out of this, what it made us realize is if we concentrate on the daily, rather than looking in the past and worrying about what's in our future, we'll survive. We will make it through. But it's each day, each 24 hours that you get needs to be your focus. Because as we've seen with this COVID and with the things going on in the world, people can be gone at the blink of an eye. You could be gone in the blink of an eye. But those 24 hours you're given should be 24 hours that you find purpose in waking up every day to be the best person you can be, not only to yourself and your family, but to everyone you encounter. Because you never know what someone else is going through and how just that simple greeting of hello, a smile, well, you can't see through the mask right now, but any of that greeting, something can change someone's day from having a bad day to having the best day that they can remember. One day at a time, y'all. You get 24 hours. 24 hours. On those days that you're off, get out the bed. Get up out of that bed. Do something productive. Make an impact. Help somebody. And that's my next transition. Help somebody. I've mentioned it many times, and we're all getting ready to see it. I just mentioned about the unemployment insurance being, ends tonight. There's a lot of people, and you may be one of them, but there's a lot of people out here that need help and are gonna need help. If you set yourself up to every day making it a conscious effort to help somebody in somehow, some way. It doesn't have to be financially all the time. This is where we get caught up. You don't have to have financial well-being to help somebody. It doesn't cost to help somebody. But while you're taking it one day at a time, during that day, make it a point to help one person every day. And you'll be surprised how it comes back to you twofold. Because if you help somebody, trust me, somebody's going to help you. And the more you help, the blessings that will flow your way will come in abundance. But you have to remember, and we have to get back to the mentality of taking it one day at a time. Now, someone will say, well, what about setting goals and having long-term plans and all that? Nobody's telling you to eliminate that. What I'm telling you is one day at a time. That's all. That's all it takes. Plan accordingly. Do what's right. Have integrity. Help somebody. But just take it one day at a time. We've been doing it through this pandemic. And I will say this, and y'all might laugh, but I'm just going to put it out there. One day at a time. I'm going to do it simply because my mama said it. And up to this day, in 54 years, my mama has never steered me wrong. That's what I'm going with for 2021. One day at a time. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. 2020, y'all. 2020. It's about over. It's about over. Everybody's going to be reaching out to everybody saying, Happy New Year, singing Auld Lang Syne and all these things. There's not going to be a lot of New Year's celebrations or anything like that. There's going to be a lot of resolutions written, a lot of, people in the gym after the first of the year, after we get into that and everything. But I would tell you this. Thank you, Lady Michelle. Appreciate the support. I would tell you this. If you're one of those people who chooses to always come up with resolutions of what you're going to do going into the new year and how you're going to make this year different than last year and all those type things, I would tell you, don't do a resolution. I would tell you, take it one day at a time. Choose happy. Choose life. Choose to help somebody each and every day that you take a breath. I can't say it any simpler than that, because we come up with resolutions, and resolutions tend to waver. Somebody will say they're going on a diet lasts about 3 days and then they're eating something else, or they'll say, oh, this year I'm going to, write in my journal every day. In the first 3 days, you're writing it and then it disappears. Do not lock yourself into that. Do not lock yourself into that, because what we know to be true is things change, people change, directions change, our mindset changes daily. But focus on the 24 hours you get each and every day. If you concentrate on that, I can't promise you, but when my mama said it, because my mama said it, I believe it to be true. I believe it. I believe that it will happen, and I believe it'll make you a better person, because we get so caught up in the what ifs that we don't concentrate on what is. And what is that you woke up in the morning and now you have 24 hours, God-given 24 hours to do something that matters, not only to you, but to somebody else. 24 hours. Make it worth, make it count. Leave 2020 in 2020. When we get into, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to wrap this up, but every year for New Year's, about 11:55, 57, somewhere in there, I light up a cigar and I get me a shot of cognac, Courvoisier to be exact. Ain't no shame. Put a couple rocks in there, But I make it a point that I started about 3 to 5 minutes before midnight. And I start smoking a cigar and I sip on that yak. Thank you, bro. And I sip on that yak. And what I do in that 3 to 5 minutes before midnight is think about everything that went on in that current year. I only give myself 3 to 5 minutes, because the longer you give yourself to think about it, the more dwelling you will do. But if you give yourself 3 to 5 minutes, you'll reflect. You won't dwell, because you're on a time limit of what you need to think about. I give myself 3 to 5 minutes to reflect on everything that's going on with me in the last year. Right, wrongs, indifference, all that. And then when midnight hits, I start thinking about the next year. What am I pushing for the next year? I don't call them resolutions. I don't, sit down and write them all out. I don't do all of that. What I do is I look at it as not a resolution, but a lifestyle change. Because when you say resolution, it's kind of teeters. But if you say it's a lifestyle change, you're more cognizant to concentrate and continue on that path of making it a change in your life rather than just a resolution. That's just the R.W. Cooling's way of doing it. You have your ways, I have mine, but it works for me, because what it does is it allows me to look at where I'm trying to get to, but at the same time, it also gives me an opportunity to leave the past in the past. And as I'm going forward, it also gives me flexibility as a lifestyle change to change. Lifestyle change gives you an opportunity to change, not to be locked in. You can manipulate it. You can change it how you need to change it. But if you say resolution to people, they lock you into it, and it makes it feel final. Lifestyle change. That should be your focus for 2021, and taking it one day at a time. Lady Michelle, you are speaking good. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Shirley R. Diggs for me. Amen. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Orlando Valentine, choose life, love, and lasting legacy by helping one another and making impact in 2021, one day at a time. A lifestyle change. Thanks. April Whedon, I agree. So we're gonna wrap this up. I appreciate everybody for 2020. You know, even though I've talked about all the bad that's going on in the world, everything that's going on, and things that, you know, we've seen happen within politics and everything like that. My focus for next year is going to be on lifestyle changes. What we need to do to change our lifestyle, what we need to do to change our well-being, what we're going to do going forward, as far as I mentioned, like the mental health and all those type things. I'm going to have guests. We're going to be talking about these things. We're going to get to a point where this is going to be the year of one day at a time, but it's going to help you along the way become better than you were in 2020. We're going to concentrate on that. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every Saturday and the support that you give. I tell you, I'm excited when I get to come on and spread the information and the feedback I get from the shows. And it just lets me know that what I'm doing is not in vain. You know, people in this era, in this time, everything that goes on, when you talk about social media and YouTube's, you know, Facebook and things like that, most people pay attention to the views. Most people pay attention to the likes. They look at those things and, you know, they look at it and say, oh, my likes were only 25 or 1,000, and, you know, all these different things that they look at the numbers. But as I always said, and I use it in the terms of what the pastor says, if I can get one to think differently than they did when they turned the show on this morning, then I've done what I'm supposed to do. And it's not in the aspect of changing your mind. It's the aspect of looking at things differently than you did before I presented the facts and presented my point of view to you each and every Saturday morning. Speak on the show, baby. I support y'all. I appreciate y'all. Happy New Year to each one of y'all. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas as well. Continue to support me. And there's some changes going to be happening for 2021. I'm not going to put them out there, but we got some changes coming to the Speak on the show, and you'll see them starting next week. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And no matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Say what you mean what you say. And as I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I appreciate y'all. And remember, one day at a time. One day at a time. That's all I'm asking of you. I love y'all. Peace. Peace. The words ran together. Love y'all.